Hi, and welcome to the Changer Chat. I'm your host, Courtney Govero. Today, I'm joined by Erin Burri. Erin is a former board member, current advisory council member, Changer, financial supporter of BCTV, business owner, shameless promoter of the mission, and most importantly, a mom. Welcome to the program, Erin.
Thank you, Courtney. It is a pleasure to be here.
You know, Grant told me before we talked that I was going to like you and that I was going to be impressed with you, and he was right. You have an amazing story, not just from a BCTV perspective, but from a personal perspective. And I love entrepreneurs in general. So I can't wait for our listeners to learn more about your passion for BCTV. Erin, tell our listeners how you got connected to Be the Change Volunteers.
Well, thank you. I personally don't feel like my story is exciting or unique. I think maybe I'm more of appealing to the everyday Joes and Jills of the world who are thinking about wanting to do more, being involved with an organization. That's pretty much where I was. I was a college grad starting out in a career, a little bit in that down space in life, that season of life where I was ready for adventure, but also a little bit, tethered, trying to get the job going. I was unmarried, no kids. It was I think everybody knows that time in life, kind of a little bit of a transitional period. And Jimmy and I fell into a conversation at a water ski competition, actually. And I was telling him how I was just kind of looking for a something. I was thinking of a mission trip. I was bouncing around various ideas. And he, at that point, was fairly early in Be the Change. They were preparing for BTCV build number 6 in Nepal. And he threw it out there, told me about it, said, you should think about joining this group. And next thing I knew, I was signed up.
And on a plane headed to Nepal. How many times do we hear that story? Well, in the Changer Chat, we hear it all the time. But in the book, Hand Delivered Hope, Jimmy's pretty transparent about building BCTV, the good, the bad, and the ugly. That first trip that you went on was more than just a little adventure. There was a lot of learning experiences and maybe even a name change. Can you tell us a little bit about that first trip?
Nepal was a learning experience for the organization as a whole, which I wasn't aware of living it in that moment. Being at the position I am in now as a former board member, advisor council member, and looking back on Nepal from the bird's eye perspective, it's kind of like, whoa. But in the moment, it was the ultimate adventure. You can travel anywhere in the world and you can book your stay in a primitive lodge, or, you can go to whatever ends the internet will let you go to with regard to finding something and booking it to get immersed in a culture as much as possible. But you are not immersed in a culture until you travel with Be the Change. That's and right. that was the amazing experience that Nepal was, because it was rough. It was tough. It was probably more extreme circumstances than we would choose to take changers on at this point in the organization. But it was early on. There was a lot of lessons learned from local contacts and connections and promises that didn't necessarily get followed through on. And it was a growing experience for Be the Change. And I couldn't feel more fortunate to have been a part of that growing experience, because for me, it was a life-changing experience. Nepal was, like I said, very difficult conditions. It was very hard work. The labor itself, it was concrete work, which with no materials, no mixers, no nothing, hand mixing concrete on the ground and carrying it on plates to form a floor foundation for an orphanage was quite a job. The sleeping situation was dirty, the ground, dirt. You woke up pretty nasty, lots of spiders, lots of sounds, lots of smells, no toilets, holes in the ground. We called it a squatty potty. Yep. There was just a lot of the rough and tough stuff that we try to avoid at all costs on trips now. But it was an experience, like you said, getting to know the fellow changers on the trip, getting to know the people who lived in the village where we were doing the build, and just seeing Nepal from right in the middle, watching the sunrise from a village was like nothing that you would experience in any other way. So in that respect, being on a Be the Change build gives you a perspective that you just won't get anywhere else.
That's right. One of my favorite things that you told me about was what the kids said to you every morning and how that still gets you when people say it to you at the yoga studios.
Oh my gosh, yes, it burned into my heart. So every morning we had a walk kind of down a dry rock river basin, and the children, the young girls especially, would go down to the river in the mornings to get water. So we would pass them as we were walking towards our build site, and they were walking back, and they would just look at you with these beautiful bright white smiles on that dark skin, and they'd look right in your eyes and say, "Namaste, sister." And now I will never sit in another yoga class and hear them end it with namaste, that I don't see those kids walking up that bank.
And knowing that you served them in that way is just really beautiful.
Yeah.
Many of our changers experience a life-changing experience when they go on the trips and they make friends. But these friends that you made at Nepal, they are still very close to you, very, very special to you.
So special. I tell you what, I think everybody, is you go through an extreme circumstance. And when I say extreme, I don't just mean it was, inconvenient lifestyle elements. We had some really tough stuff. We had a lot of people get sick, really got hit hard with stomach bug. There was some major physical challenges encountered by the group, and the food wasn't necessarily something that was agreeable for us. It was tough for us to really get satisfied, get full, and then combined with the sickness, it was one of those things where we just bound together as a group. If you had anything, you were sharing it. Everybody was looking out for everybody, and we were such a team. We were such a family. And, here we are, over a decade outside of that trip, and any of those people from Nepal, if we cross paths on Facebook or anywhere, we all know that that's a forever bond. Mm-hmm. I will be there for those people, and they will be there for me for the rest of our lives, because we went through something together that was just life-changing. It was, it really was. And I don't want to paint Nepal like it was a scary situation, but, in reality, like I said, we encountered things that we now have, better systems for avoiding, because it's not ideal for a trip. And everything turned out fine. We were never, in harm's way, but it was roughing it to a degree. And actually, that's kind of a funny element. At one point on the trip, we're working, and everybody's kind of sitting down for a second, taking a break, and it's grueling, it's hot, it's work. And I said, Jimmy, I think Be the Change Vacations is a little bit deceiving. And it was that point that the decision was made to change to Be the Change Volunteers. So the original name truly was Vacations, and I think Nepal was the turning point of, maybe we shouldn't call it a vacation.
No, it's not really a vacation. It's work, but it's good work, and it's fulfilling. And I think your Papua New Guinea stories are really interesting because, it's why the organization is so important. It's how that volunteer piece really plays into who Be the Change is. Talk to us a little bit about why that school in Papua New Guinea was built. What was the reason for that?
Yeah, so Papua New Guinea was a really special place. It became a campus-wide project, which is one of the really neat elements of the build. It wasn't just a school. It is going to be an entire campus, because the situation where we were working was there was a large group of children who were walking extreme distances every day for the opportunity to be admitted into a classroom. And it was an iffy thing. Sometimes they'd get in, sometimes there wouldn't, if there was a seat available, not available. So when we were there doing the build, we would hear the kids out back washing their clothes early in the morning. I mean, before the sun comes up, so that they could put on their school uniforms, be clean, be ready, and make that hike into town to see if there was a place for them in school. So, going to work every day, knowing that we were going to give them a place in their backyard that would let them in every single day, guaranteed, was just a really, really great feeling. And of course, those kids were so present, and they knew exactly what was going on. So seeing the excitement in their faces and their parents' faces, it was a very, very much what is the ideal situation for a Be the Change build, which is seeing those who are going to be impacted by what you're doing, and then actually getting to work alongside their families and letting them have that skin in the game. Because I mean, we all know how critical that is, for these builds to be successful. It's not give a man a fish, it's teach a man to fish. So when we have the opportunity to just go and be a catalyst and work with the community, that's our goal for every build. In some situations, it's easier for that to happen than others. Papua New Guinea was just a wonderful example of totally being able to work side by side.
Yeah, that whole village participated in everything, and you ate with them and you worked with them. That was really cool how you got to share so much with it. I think we take that for granted so much in the US, that there is a school in nearly every neighborhood. It's not that far to get to school, but there it was well over a mile, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, I think they told me that the kids walked an hour. So I mean, I would assume that they have a pretty good clip at their age. So yeah, it must have been a pretty good haul. And definitely a great feeling to know that. And yeah, when we stayed, we were actually in a house that was built by one of the parents of some children who were going to benefit from the school, made us a very, very nice place to stay. And they had we'd call it an outdoor kitchen. So kind of like, 4 posts and a roof. And they had some wood fired cooking ovens. And these women, I tell you what, they put together wonderful meals. It was so good. Lots of fresh fruit, lots of papaya. They did their best to make. They try so hard to do, American version. So they made us pizza and lots of sandwiches. So they were, they just went out of their way to accommodate and to show their appreciation, which was really cool.
That is really cool. Your story is a great example of how lives go through seasons. Now, you've been on several trips, but as you grew a very successful real estate company and became a mom, your time and priorities have changed. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about that, how you have adjusted your engagement with BCTV and how you have adjusted how you actually interact with the organization and the builds?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, because if there's anything that I bring to the table, and I don't think there's much, but what I do want to bring to the table is just the perspective for anybody who's listening, that there is a role that you can play. If Be the Change sounds like an organization that you like the mission, even if the travel sounds like something that's just really not going to work right now. As you said, as a young college grad starting in business, my biggest hurdle was financially being able to go on a build. So I sent out letters to family and friends and told them what I wanted to do. And I asked for sponsorship, and I couldn't believe how easy it was. People were very willing to help, because a lot of people are in that season where they think it's great. They just don't want to do it, or don't have time to do it, or, fill in the blank, physically aren't able to do it. So there are plenty of people who were willing to support, and I was ready to go, which was great. And now, again, I am in a season now where I have a 5-year-old. Hopefully, we're going to come into an age where maybe it'll be easier to go again. But for these last 5 years, I have felt very tethered. Work's been busy. Balancing the mom work life doesn't seem like it leaves a lot of opportunities for, 10 to 14 day travel trips that don't involve the family. That gets really hard to come by in this season of life. And I feel like God's blessing to me has been the opportunity to, through the success of business, sponsor people who are at a season where they want to travel. So doing my best now to help the organization in ways that I can to sponsor travelers who are able to go physically do what I don't feel like I can do as easily right now. And then obviously I've really enjoyed getting involved on more of the administrative level and learning more about the organization on this end, and doing things that are hopefully are helpful here in the States that I can do while I'm doing the rest of life. So there's a season for whatever life is giving you right now. There's something that you can give to be the change.
That's right. I love that. And, Jimmy had talked about the opportunities of using your time, treasures, and talents. And you are using all three of them with Be the Change. You know, a few years ago, I served on my first nonprofit board, and I thought this was going to be some fun experience and hanging out and being on a board. But it was crazy amount of work, and it was crazy amount of commitment. And you've been on the BCTV board before, and now you're on the advisory council. But tell us a little bit about that board experience. What's it like to be a board member for those of us that are younger, those of our listeners, not us, because I'm not younger, but but for those listeners that are younger and thinking, hey, I might like to be on a board someday, tell them a little bit about that board experience.
Yeah, I think that my biggest takeaway for directed toward that question specifically would be there really isn't a too young to be involved, because that's the great thing about the board is diversity. The thing that makes, I think, the strongest board for an organization such as this is diversity of perspectives, opinions, you know, everything that people bring to the table that is going to be contrary to someone else just gives everybody that much more to think about and process as they look at different elements of this. So the board experience for me, I think I started out very intimidated because it was a first. I felt like I didn't have the knowledge or the experience or much corporate experience. Now I'm an independent contractor professionally, and the board felt so corporate. And kind of just felt like I was out of my element. After sitting through a few meetings, reading through the applications that were coming in and just really trying to understand it, going into it with the assumption that it was going to be over my head. Mm-hmm. I realized that Grant specifically just does an amazing job of asking the right questions of these applicants and then providing an application to the board members where we really get an eagle-eye shot of what it is they're wanting to do, what kind of materials, what kind of budget, what issues are we likely going to encounter. And he just really has the foresight to figure out a lot of the questions that we should ask and go ahead and address them for us, which is awesome. It gives you just the ability to read the summaries, get a good understanding, and really learn a lot about how much this board does to vet projects in advance. That was hugely eye-opening to me. I didn't realize how much went into selecting a community to go in and do a build for. So that was a neat thing to learn on the board. And then obviously the camaraderie with other board members was really special. Got to get to know a lot of people on a much deeper level and learn about, their backgrounds business wise, because all of a sudden that was a little bit of an element. And I had a great experience as a board member, and I hope to cycle back on at some point. I did my 2 terms and, I got the boot. And I hope that, at some point I'll come back, because I really feel like I will be a better board member now, kind of have the jitters under control. And I've gotten to observe more meetings from the outside, but with the inside knowledge. So yeah, I'm really excited, and definitely think that any young person who's wondering, can I do that? The answer is yes.
That's great. That's great advice. And I'm sure some of our younger listeners will like hearing that. And I agree, having that diversity is really important, because the board does recruiting, the board does fundraising, the board does all sorts of things and needs all sorts of people. And I hope you get back into the cycle too, because you're a fantastic advocate for Be the Change. This has been a great chat, and I really have appreciated your time. I'm finding the mission of BCTV means something different to each one of the people I interview. Tell me a little bit about what the education means for you, especially now that you're a mom, from that perspective that you have that's different than when you first started. Wow,
that's a great question. I don't want to drag this out, but there's a story that I do want to tell you, because I think that it is in a roundabout way the true answer to that. When I came back from Nepal, I had such what I think a lot of people experience, where you just kind of have that heavy heart coming back into your own civilization. You think about everything, from the toilets and the hot water to this mattress full of feathers that you lay your head on in your climate controlled house, with your bamboo sheets and your silk pajama, fill in the blanks. Our world is just unbelievably convenient and wonderful and spoiled. And when you come back from a trip, it is just really hard not to feel guilty about everything. And then, we kind of talk about that as a group in hindsight of trips. It's kind of like, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with coming back and just going back into the easy life we live without having almost a heavy heart, realizing how much of the world lives in such different and extreme conditions? And, I think the answer, the takeaway, is definitely that the things that we do for others, the heart that we have and the way we go about our lives is the important part. And, there was a woman who was sweeping her dirt porch every morning when we left for work in Nepal. And she was sweeping her dirt porch when we got back. And she was smiling and she was happy and life was great. And I kind of hold that image in my mind that it doesn't have to be the complicated parts. It can be the simple parts, and you can find great joy in all the simple parts. So as a mom now, I think that what I carry from Be the Change into my life and into my role as a mom, and it definitely ebbs and flows, don't get me wrong, as I just bought a Nintendo Switch for his birthday. Yeah, right. But what I do catch myself feeling a lot of times is the memory of the simple joys that really bring the greatest true joy to your heart. Mm-hmm. And when I feel like I need to be doing certain things as a mom that America has kind of groomed me to think we need to do, I always move myself back to a Be the Change trip. And I think about the true happiness and the true joy. And it is not the things of this world that are bringing it.
That's right.
So I think that the answer to your question is to Be the Change. It just gives me a perspective, and my heart really needs to go on a build like every 2 years. It needs it. I'm clearly past due. But that's the best medicine and the best soul food is the opportunity to go and see how the rest of the world lives. And be a part of it, be a part of changing it and making it better. And realize that what really happens when you go to make someone else's life better, you're the one whose life gets better. That's just the way it happens.
That is true. That's beautiful. I love that. I love hearing those things from the changers and from the leadership and everything. It is clear that the people that go on these builds come back different. And it's really clear that the mission of the organization is impacting the world in a powerful way. Well, I want to thank you, Erin, for joining me today. This has been fantastic. Long time.
Oh, thank you, Courtney. Thank you so much.
I want everyone listening to make sure you check out our website, BeTheChangeVolunteers.org. We have some exciting new trips coming up in 2022. And if not you, then who? And if not now, then when? And even if you can't go, you can be the change. We even have a matching grant going on for every $1 donated, $2 given, up to $50,000. This is a great way, even if you can't go on a trip, give up your lattes for a week, and it's $25, people. So hop online, be part of Be the Change. And thanks, Erin, and have a great day.